Look at you. You're 5 foot nothing, 100 and nothing. You barely got 1 ounce of athletic ability. Over the past 2 years, you hung in there with some of the finest football players in this land. And you're gonna walk out of here with a degree from the University of Notre Dame. In this life, you ain't got nothing to prove to nobody but yourself. And if you ain't done that by now, it ain't never gonna happen. Rudy is a classic underdog story about a small, unathletic young man who dreamed of playing college football. He's aided along by Fortune, the groundskeeper, played by Charles S. Dutton, who I just gave his inspirational speech. That helps Rudy recognize his place in the world, understand himself, achieving his goals. It might sound familiar, that basic idea, this young man trying to get a sense of his place in the world, aided along by this mentor. One might say it's familiar because that's the outline that we follow over and over and over again. In recent months, I've really taken an interest in Joseph Campbell, who proposed this idea called the hero's journey. And it's just that we have this outline in folklore, in our modern movies, in our books. And I'd even considered lecturing you all on the hero's journey, which follows 12 basic steps. But I found myself going back to this mentor character, this person that inspires and aids. And I wanted to share some about them and thinking about these people in our own lives. In my experience, these characters, I love these characters. They don't always get those great speeches. We have our Obi-Wan Kenobis, our Doc Brown, our Gandalf, Dumbledore, Dory, whoever else in our life. But that inspirational music is never playing in the background, and they are rarely that eloquent. A lot of times we're inspired from others through their actions. And I ought to know, I have a story to tell you about one of the more inspirational people I know. Her name is Siobhan, and she raises awareness of Down syndrome through running races of the 100-mile distance. Many of you already know I ran cross country in college. It was a Division III program, which pretty much meant we're not elites, you walk on, you show up if you want to. I had seen myself during my time there as I slogged along at the back of the pack as the underdog. I saw myself very much like Rudy. In fact, I'd use that line and say, change it a little bit. Look at you, you're 6 foot something, 200 and something, and you ain't got an ounce of athletic ability. And if you've ever seen a competitive long distance race, you know someone built like me is not likely to be there. They're always much smaller. If they are anywhere close to my height, they're built like a gazelle, 160 pounds soaking wet. And so that was my place. I was this underdog. Now, if the story had held true like a real movie, I would have won the race or contributed somehow. That would have helped the team propel to victory. That never happened. I lettered by my junior year, didn't letter until then. I had a pretty good race, finally cracked the top 5 of my team, not overall at any race, at any point. And I was first on my team one time, my final race my senior year, at some windswept, hilly golf course in northeastern Iowa. And then that was the end of it. That's the end of my college career in cross country. None of us ever go pro, and I certainly was not going to do that. But it was a fun experience. I walk away with a lifelong hobby in running and some really good friends who were my teammates. Today, being what today is, we keep in touch through social media, which is how I found out that my friend Siobhan, who had long since moved out to Colorado, had a son several years ago. He was born with an extra chromosome. Being good parents and good advocates, she and her husband connected with an organization called RDS, Research Down Syndrome, and their big role was to promote it. The promoters decided that their role in promoting it would be through running races. In Colorado, the highest point in Colorado is Leadville, Colorado, and there is an ultra marathon there called the Leadville 100. When Siobhan reached out to her friends, as you might, you're trying to raise awareness of something, trying to raise funds, get support. She reached out to her friends and said, would you please support me? I'm gonna run the Leadville 100. And of course I reached right back. In social media, where you write a sentence or two, I wrote right back and said, pledged my support. Her response to me wasn't, hey, thanks, I appreciate it. Let me tell you about this event. Let me tell you what I'm doing here. Let me tell you about the Leadville 100, which, by the way, if you don't know anything about it, imagine the Boston Marathon, this elite level event running 26 miles. Me, I've reached a half marathon a couple of times and it was painful. I couldn't imagine running a marathon. Imagine the Boston Marathon twice, back to back, uphill, up a mountain, and then when you're done, you turn around and run back in the dark. Yeah, that's right. Nuh-uh. When Siobhan reached back to me, she had 2 sentences. Nothing about the race, nothing about herself, her cause. 2 sentences about me. I still think about your race senior year. Push your limits. Imagine this person, sleep deprived, feeling like she has sludge running through her veins, hard to go on, and she's thinking about that one race that Rinky ran senior year. Push your limits. She's pushing her limits because of something I didn't even know I was doing it. And so I just wanted to share that story because to me it's such a story of inspiration. She inspires me daily. And for some reason I inspired her. And if I'm calling you to action, I'm calling you to a very simple action. Keep on doing what you're doing. Do what you're passionate about, what you believe in. But know that when you feel like you can't go on, you reach that point, and then you somehow do, that somebody's watching you, and you're inspiring them. Going back to this idea of the hero's journey, we're all heroes on our own journeys, and be the hero on your own journey. But realize that life is a lot more complicated than a story. And while you're being the hero on your own journey, you're being a helper on someone else's journey. You're being a mentor on someone else's journey. I see you struggle. I see you fail. I see you succeed. I see you craft speeches when you're too busy to craft a speech and share them with us. I see you keep this group running when you've got plenty of other stuff to do and plenty of reason to stop. And I appreciate that. You parents, you spouses, you colleagues, you teachers, you students, you friends. You are so much to so many people. Please be aware of that. Be the hero of your own journey, but also recognize your place on others.